Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's wrap up week 22 with Silmarillion Saturday. Now, these Saturdays are our chance to revisit the history and legends of the Elder Days. Sometimes we pull things from the Silmarillion, sometimes it's unfinished tales, sometimes it's something else altogether. Now, it might be time to finish this current session beating the Fëanor Pinata as I wrap up of the Silmarils and the unrest of the Noldor. Last week, we watched Fëanor do his Fëanoriest as he drew a sword and pointed it at his brother's chest, threatening his life if he, talked to his dad. I mean, how dare you talk to our father? Okay, Fëanor. We also saw him get sent to Elvish timeout, which is really a pointless punishment with elves being serially longeval and all. Anyway, it's time to finish this chapter as we get to see what Melkor is up to. Now Melkor, knowing that his devices had been revealed, hid himself and passed from place to place as a cloud in the hills, and Tulkas sought for him in vain. Then it seemed to the people of Valinor that the light of the trees was dimmed, and the shadows of all standing things grew longer and darker in that time. It is told that for a time Melkor was not seen again in Valinor, nor was any rumor heard of him, until suddenly he came to Formenos and spoke with Fëanor before his doors. Friendship he feigned with cunning argument, urging him to his former thought of flight from the trammels of the Valar. And he said, "Behold the truth of all that I have spoken, and how thou art banished unjustly. But if the heart of Fëanor is yet as free and bold as were his words in Tirion, then I will aid him and bring him far from this narrow land. For am I not Vala also? Yea, and more than those who sit in pride in Valimar. And I have ever been a friend to the Noldor, most skilled and most valiant of the people of Arda." Now, Fëanor's heart was still bitter at his humiliation before Mandos, and he looked at Melkor in silence, pondering if indeed he might yet trust him so far as to aid him in his flight. And Melkor, seeing that Fëanor wavered, and knowing that the Silmarils held his heart in thrall, said at the last, "Here is a strong place, and well guarded, but think not that the Silmarils will lie safe in any treasury within the realm of the Valar." But his cunning overreached his aim. His words touched too deep, and awoke a fire more fierce than he designed. And Fëanor looked upon Melkor with eyes that burned through his fair semblance and pierced the cloaks of his mind, perceiving there his fierce lust for the Silmarils. Then hate overcame Fëanor's fear, and he cursed Melkor and bade him begone, saying, "Get thee gone from my gate, thou jailcrow of Mandos." And he shut the doors of his house in the face of the mightiest of all the dwellers in Ea. Then Melkor departed in shame, for he was himself in peril, and saw not his time yet for revenge. But his heart was black with anger, and Finwë was filled with great fear, and in haste he sent messengers to Manwë in Valmar. Now the Valar were sitting in council before their gates, fearing the lengthening of the shadows, when the messengers came from Formenos. At once Orome and Tulkas sprang up, but even as they set out in pursuit, messengers came from Eldamar, telling that Melkor had fled through the Calakiria, and from the hill of Tuna the elves had seen him pass in wrath as a thundercloud. And they said that thence he had turned northward, for the Teleri and Alqualonde had seen his shadow going by their haven towards Ahriman. Thus Melkor departed from Valinor, and for a while the two trees shone again unshadowed, and the land was filled with light. But the Valar sought in vain for tidings of their enemy, and as a cloud far off that looms ever higher, borne upon a slow, cold wind, a doubt now marred the joy of all the dwellers in Aman, dreading they knew not what evil that yet might come. Melkor. Well, let's unpack a few of these things, shall we? We get Melkor's attempt to persuade Fëanor, which is going really, really well, right up until it doesn't. Melkor pushes too far, forgetting the famous rule of negotiating, he who speaks first loses. After all, Melkor had Fëanor right where he wanted him, but his impatience, which, remember, was one of the sins of Melkor in the first place, costs him. And Fëanor goes, full Fëanor on him. Though, it must be said, this is a moment of genuine bravery for Fëanor. Now, I also want to take a second and commend the narrative for using the word thrall correctly here, unlike the way Fëanor has used it in the past, and unlike the way he'll continue to use it. Melkor, we are told, knows that the Silmarils held his heart in thrall. Yep, now you know what that word means. Melkor runs away. He does that a lot, it seems. And even Tulkas and Orome can't catch him, or even catch a sign of where he went. And so the entire land is filled with dread for whatever might come next. Folks, that does it for this week's Silmarillion Saturday and for week 22 of today's Tolkien Times. Thank you for joining me. Please visit patreon.com/Tolkien Times to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, a bonus weekly episode, which folks are going to listen to right after this, and a whole lot more. And folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, please follow or subscribe. And follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.